$5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Segment and portion of the Paul Harrell program, just so you know, is brought to you by the great folks at Conduit for Commerce, because they're putting Arkansas small business first. And joining us now to talk a little bit more about that, we have Brenda Vassar-Taylor with us from Conduit for Commerce. Brenda, welcome back.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for mentioning our article from this week that came out, Conduit for Commerce, Tax Reform and Relief Task Force Recommendations.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting. When we went over this on the program a couple of days ago, there obviously is a task task force. Sorry, I've had so many different nicknames for it at this point that I'm messing up myself. But and Conduit for Commerce has put out recommendations, and very serious, specific recommendations for tax reform and relief. And we did go over it. And Brenda, I got to say, one of the things that stood out to me is something that I haven't heard anybody else say, and that's that our tax system is really the issue that drives government spending. You write here in the paper, the level of government spending in Arkansas is directly determined by the tax system, not the budget process. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, that's exactly right, Paul. But first, I want to, again, thank you for having us on. Conduit for Commerce is focused on small business in Arkansas. But let me tell you why we feel like, we qualify as a voice here.
Okay.
I am, let me give you a little bit of background about what I do. I have an accounting degree. I have a law degree. I have a master's in tax law, and I have practiced tax law for over 30 years. And these are the kinds of things I deal with daily. And so I can recall as a young law student and then getting out, practicing law with fresh eyes, I looked at the laws that other states had, and I thought, well, why can't Arkansas do something like that? Back then, Delaware and their corporate system, everyone wanted to set up a corporation in Delaware. And as I learned, well, it's just a matter of changing the laws. So couldn't Arkansas do that? And so I applaud the opportunity that we now have and that the legislators now have to change Arkansas's tax code so that we, too, can become a dynamic state and engage through changing our laws to free commerce in Arkansas rather than restrain it or control it. And so as we look at ways to do that, and as I, tried to go look a little closer and a little deeper, we've heard our governor say we have a revenue problem. And as I look at it, I think, well, I guess he's right, because the revenue, the money that we have to spend in Arkansas, is directly tied to our tax structure, our taxing system. Everything that comes in the door through taxes or regulation fees, whatever, is everything that's spent. But everything that does come in is spent. And so we spend all that we rake in, and there's not any mechanism that we have to reduce that. And so what you hear now, well, we have a revenue problem, implying we need more revenue. And then you have people say, no, we have a spending problem. Well, we're spending everything we bring in under the current system in Arkansas, that Revenue Stabilization Act that we love so much because it, quote, requires us to spend no more every year than we take in. Therefore, we call it our balanced budget. But at the same time, our system itself is what's driving more and more spending. As more comes in, we spend more. And it's like not having a limit on your gas pedal,
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Brenda Vassar-Taylor from Conduit for Commerce. You're exactly right, Brenda. And in this, again, the quote that I just read, the level of government spending in Arkansas is directly determined by the tax system, not the budget process. So that would suggest that if they reduce our taxes, meaning the government gets less money, that would be a positive thing. But let me ask you this, Brenda. What are you...
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. It is hour number 2. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. So glad that you could be with us today. The phone number, if you would like to call us or text us, is 870-275-9799. Or you can sound off on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show, where we have the live Facebook Live video up for you right now. Happy Monday to everybody out there. We do have a new whiteboard. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But before we do that, just a little update on former Senator John Woods and this entire kickback scheme involving Micah Neal, former state representative Micah Neal, who has pled guilty. Of course, we got John Woods, we got Randall Shelton, we got Orrin Paris and Ecclesia College. We got all of this stuff that's continuing to develop, where there was a pretty intricate and elaborate scheme to take taxpayer general improvement funds, award it to certain institutions, and then have them pay a consultant, which would then in turn pay the legislator for basically access, just selling access to who gets to award this money. And we have the headline here is that kickback objection kicked in Woods' case. It's Doug Thompson. It was published back on the 4th of November. I saw it over the weekend on Facebook, and a lot of people, a lot of listeners to this show picking up on this stuff, following this stuff now, and I really warms my heart to know that we have people out there who are sharing this stuff on Facebook. Doug Thompson writes that the defense attorneys in the kickback case, and now I would just call it a kickback scheme. I mean, if you look at this stuff, it's pretty open and shut, in my opinion. But it involves Senator John Woods. That they lost their claim is what Mr. Doug Thompson writes. That they lost their claim that government attorneys didn't provide usable documents to the defense in a timely manner. Okay, Woods, Orrin Paris III, the president of Ecclesia College in Springdale, and consultant Randall Shelton. You know, a lot of legislators like to think of themselves as consultants. They really do. They feel like, especially once they get into power, that their opinions are now, so much more valuable. They're actually more like, they're really just used for their vote, to pass things that we all have to live under, to force people to do things. And that's worth it to some people, a lot of people. Randall Shelton Jr., formerly of Alma, they're accused of participating in a plan to pay John Woods, who was in office at the time, and another legislator kickbacks in return. Now, we know all this, but here's the kicker, okay, is that this case is going forward on December the 4th. We are less than 1 month away from the kickback scheme case, the trial starting on December the 4th. This thing is going to kick off. Now, you'll remember a long time ago, feels like a month or so ago, I started getting, I reported on this program sources saying that, hey, there are some major FBI indictments who are coming down the pike real soon. It's going to affect the numbers in both legislative chambers in terms of who's going to get pinched for this. And a lot of people have called me since and been like, Paul, what's going on? Paul, what happened? Why haven't we heard anything? And I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I can tell you is this. I reported what I heard. Number two is the FBI has been here. They have done their work. This is, in my opinion, unless there's some loose ends out there, and there could be, and I don't know everything, but the FBI's done quite a job from what I can tell. I mean, just if you go read the affidavit where Jake Files is mentioned, it's clear that they're on the case. You know what I'm saying? Like, they know what they're doing. They've rounded up the facts. Now, at that point, then it's up to a prosecutor to bring charges. It's up to a prosecutor to actually do the right thing here. And that may be another story. It may be a different thing, entirely. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. However, some will tell you that this December 4th date might be I don't know, maybe we're waiting on this December 4th date. Maybe we're waiting on this to actually kick off before we have some more stuff that happens. Who knows? Maybe there'll be more pleas. Maybe there'll be people that will try to, maybe people that are involved in this case and December 4th that will start to say, you know what, I'm going to start talking. There's a lot of different scenarios here. But this is all it's pure speculative. I mean, you can't get any more speculative than this, really. But that's just one of the beliefs out there. Now, speaking of Senator John Woods, the whiteboard today says deceivers and believers. Deceivers and believers. So the first question that you might ask yourself is, why would anybody believe someone who is a deceiver? Well, that question kind of answers itself, doesn't it? You're being deceived. So you could look at it that way, but this whiteboard is actually more specific than that. Let me back up. Let me give our viewers a shot here. Deceivers and believers. Deceivers and believers. Now, some of these believers are naive. Some of these believers refuse to acknowledge that they're being deceived. If you take John Woods for a second, everybody knew that issue 3 of, what was that? Was that 2014? Was not about ethics. Okay. Everybody knew issue 3 of 2016 wasn't about jobs. Everyone knew it. Who was responsible for those 2 issue 3s on multiple election years that we all voted for and passed? Senator John Woods. Now, you want to talk about a deceiver. We haven't even gotten into the court case, right? Take that aside. Let's just look at his body of legislative work. You take someone like Senator John Woods, who puts an ethics amendment that really extends term limits and raises salaries. But the way the ethics amendment is worded is that we're going to set term limits, making people believe we don't have them right now. The uneducated voter, unfortunately, read that amendment the way the legislature and John Woods wrote it, thinking we didn't already have term limits. In fact, it extended them, and it formed a legislative committee or a legislative picked committee of people who immediately recommended their increase in pay and increase in salaries. And then at the same time, the ethics amendment did away with business contributions to candidates. The only way that your LLC or your business can contribute to the political process is you've got to go out and find a political action committee that you trust to give your money away. So your mom and pop shops no longer can give, X amount of dollars from themselves personally and X amount of dollars for their business. No, if their business wants, they have to. So all that effectively did, ladies and gentlemen, was cut out your mom and pop shops because, big businesses don't give anybody money. They already are using political action committees. Now, that's John Woods for you. That was about ethics. That was about reforming the system. And yet here we are. You have deceivers and believers. Now, in that whole construct, you had people that, in many cases, didn't want to believe they were being deceived. You could even extrapolate this out further. You can find other examples of this. For example, when Senator Jim Hendren in 2015 used his previously, let's just say his previous conservative record, where he had filed bills. Of course, we later figured out that he said it doesn't matter what you file when you're in the minority because it's not going to pass, which is really basically means we can throw everything you did when you were the minority in the minority control out because you didn't really believe in it, or we had no way of knowing if you really believed in what you were filing. That wasn't going to pass anyway. Senator Jim Hendren, we were in the majority finally, and so what happens is he files his bill to, quote, end Medicaid expansion. It ends it. Remember, we've played this a million times. It ends it. Medicaid expansion is going to go away. Still haven't received a phone call from anybody telling us that, in fact, it has gone away. Of course, we told you that it wouldn't, and we were correct. And now here we are. The reality of the situation is it's grown. Asa Hutchinson inherited a program of, 250,000 people, and it got as high as 330,000 people. That's his legacy, a welfare program for able-to-work adults. That's Senator Jim Hendren's legacy. But what happened when Conduit, when this program told everybody what was really in the bill, told everybody what they were really up to, what they were really doing? And by the way, they did it not even in a straightforward way. They just did it in a dishonest way. They did it in a deceptive way. What happened when I said that they were deceiving? There were some politicians who believed the deceivers. It's really weird. Some people gave the excuse, well, no, I trust Jim Hendren, or I trust Asa. They're going to do what they say they're going to do. But what about the bill? No. Don't question their integrity. The bill's the bill, but just follow their lead. Well, now we have the results of that. You see, you have deceivers, people who are actively deceiving the public. They're not just deceiving the public. They work to deceive those in the legislature. They work to deceive those in the legislature. They work to give them information, talking points, to come back to their base that is much more conservative than the Republican establishment is. And here's how you sell it. Here's how you tell them that you're all of a sudden way smarter than you were when you were running on common sense, conservative, limited government ideas. And really and truly, I mean, that's the question. I mean, do we want I'm telling you, that is the culture down there. You're really, there are three people down there. You're a true conservative, right? Sorry, my computer, I'm going to have to get my charger here in a minute. I'm like down to 7%. It's in my bag, Joe. Thanks. There are three others. So you get true conservatives. Then you have your deceivers, and then you have your believers, the people who are kind of just sheep, who are just going to believe the deceivers. They're going to believe all their nonsense. Like right now, there's probably some people believing the deceivers down there right now on the tax reform. They're going to believe that they're actually going to cut taxes when in reality it's going to be a net tax increase. No, thanks. It's going to be a net tax increase, and it's frustrating. Hang on a second, folks. We got to save the whole program. There we go. Have to save the whole program. This computer can't die. That'd be a travesty. All right, here we go. Thank you, Joe. Well, let's see here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if we don't have power or what. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a break because I think we're down to the 20. I'll pick all of this back up here in just a moment. You are listening to the Paul Harrell program. Happy Monday to everybody out there. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure that life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Want to go back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. I'm in the weirdest situation right now. I've never seen a computer do what it's doing right now. I'm at 0% battery, plugged up to a charger. Computer's still working. So we were thinking my charger was not working, but so I don't know what's going on. We'll have to figure something out here in a minute. Did anybody see we mentioned, I guess a week ago, well, we've mentioned Senator Bart Hester a lot. Senator Bart Hester, of course, in the news on this program most recently because of his outspoken criticism of Conduit for Action's presence at the Benton County Republican committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. Senator Bart Hester, when he started his criticism, he decided to start quoting from the book of Proverbs and quoted a Bible verse completely out of context. And not only did he quote it out of context, I feel like he botched it. So, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, some people do that. You could start a new nickname if you wanted. Mr. Proverbs, if you wanted to. You start calling Senator Hester Mr. Proverbs if you want. We'll see. We'll see. Who knows? But he's in the news again. Max Brantley has written about him because, well, there's criticism here because apparently a couple legislative sessions ago he decided to pass a law about billboards and exempting them from property tax assessment, the way property value works rather than property cost. Your cost can be much lower than the actual value a government official assesses it at. And so Max Brantley at the Arkansas Times, big liberal, by the way, writing on November the 2nd in his blog post, Privileged, you come down here to a sub-headline that reads, Self-Interest. It says it's, he writes, quote, it's epidemic in the legislature. Former legislative leaders Gilbert Baker and Michael Lamoureux pocketed consulting fees oh, there's that word again, consulting fees, as they work to advance the interests of a payer working to protect corporations from damage lawsuits. Representative Andy Davis, whose business in water treatment is forever legislating things that benefit his business. I actually have no idea if that last statement is true. Again, this is Brantley. But he mentions Bart Hester. Last week, the slow wheels of justice finally ground out action against that enemy of gay people, Senator Bart Hester. Again, this is from Max Brantley. In 2015, he jammed through a law to undo a state assessment coordination division rule and allow favorable personal property tax treatment for land on which billboards sit. His law pegged taxes to cost of property, not its market value, with revenue-producing billboards. Wouldn't you know it, Bart Hester is an owner of such land. Now, the reason this is significant is because we briefly mentioned that there's a lawsuit now, okay? There's somebody suing the state because of this law saying you can't treat property differently like this. That's why this is an issue. This wouldn't be an issue if there wasn't a lawsuit. That was what initially made the headline. So it's clear to, but the only reason I'm reporting on this and Max Brantley is because Max Brantley writes that Bart Hester says he now owns no land. He's updated his statement here, saying he owns no land with billboards or any interest in billboards. At the time the bill was passed, tax records indicated an LLC in which he had an interest in billboard properties, what he writes, and he refused to talk about that at the time. I've gone back and I've looked at the legislation. I think we went over it a little bit last week. It's hard to say with a straight face that this was passed without some self-interest involved. It's just extremely hard to do. And the issue that I see with people in self-interest and everything else is, I think if you serve in the legislature and you have any sort of private entrepreneurial spirit, eventually, if you serve in the legislature, you're going to come to a moment where there is a huge conflict of interest. And the thing that you should do is stay out of it. This thing that you should do is recuse yourself if you have personal interest. You go back to Senator Jim Hendren, right? Senator Jim Hendren was the lead sponsor of the bill to cut military retirees retirement. Well, he's a recipient of military retirement. He was championing a bill, okay, speaking for it, and it passed, and that directly puts money into Senator Jim Hendren's pocket. Okay, so this isn't just, and I really believe this strongly, it's not just, well, I'm a private individual, so I only have to recuse myself of private matters. But if you're in the military, okay, which is an honorable thing to do, very courageous, all of a sudden we don't need to recuse ourselves when we're passing, carve-outs in the tax code for military veterans, but you're a military veteran. There just needs, I don't know, does anybody even think about how this stuff looks anymore? And it's, it was one thing when you could go down the list, you could find Democrat after Democrat after Democrat that did the same thing. You have Republican after Republican who's run on doing things differently, and we're getting the same results, at least in the leadership. At least in the leadership. There are a few good apples down there, right? A few good apples. But there are also deceivers. And then there are those sheep who are believing the deceivers. Deceivers and believers. We're going to be right back with Senator Brian King, certainly one of the good ones, when we come back.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Will you define what a tax cut is, in your opinion?
A tax cut, and I believe anyone who is listening, the common voter, when they think of tax cut, they think they're going to spend less money. They personally will spend less money, but they don't think just about themselves getting a tax cut. They assume the entire system is reduced, meaning that Arkansas would basically receive less money than it did the prior year. This tax neutral and shifting taxes, the rules under which this task force is assigned, they are promising to modernize and simplify the code, be competitive and attract businesses, create jobs, be fair to individuals and entities. And so that fairness thing, when you start moving it around and saying, we're going to get rid of exemptions, that sounds really good. These people who are getting to be exempt under paying taxes, well, that goes to the fairness piece. But when you're getting rid of exemptions, you're raising taxes, the revenue that comes into the state, and people are paying more. But if you're going to reform it so that we have actually attracted business, we have to start out, before we eliminate an exemption, we have to significantly cut rates. And that's the thing I have not heard this task force say. I've heard them say we're going to broaden the tax base, meaning more people will pay taxes. We're going to, in other words, increase the number of people who pay. We're going to get rid of the deductions that some people have. But I have yet to hear them say they're going to cut the rates. I've heard them say, if we can get the internet sales tax and it brings in enough money, as soon as we know how much it brings in, then maybe we can talk about cutting rates. That's not what Arkansas needs, because that will produce more revenue for the state of Arkansas, and that is a tax increase.
And
so you measure tax cuts by how much revenue the state gets.
Exactly, and because of the Revenue Stabilization Act, we're at a point to where if the government gets more money, it will get spent. I mean, you hear at Conduit for Commerce the tax recommendations. You guys are really articulating what the actual problem is, and when you mention that you haven't heard them talk about significantly cutting the rates, I do believe. I mean, we've documented why here on the program. It's because, Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum, when he, kicked off the very first meeting, he, corrected a perception, or at least his perception in the media, that this task force was there just to recommend future tax.
Your values, your ideals. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Before we get to our interview with Senator Brian King, yesterday was a terrible tragedy in Texas, and there was some coverage about this, obviously all over the media, all over the news, and believe it or not, a lot of people are looking to Arkansas to remedy when it comes to being able to arm yourself in churches. So on Fox News and their coverage, several times throughout the day, they mentioned Senator Brian King. This is what it sounded like.
Absolutely. And earlier this evening, we had talked to Arkansas State Senator Brian King, because he had introduced legislation in that state called the Church Protection Act. The Church Protection Act allows churches to permit someone to carry a firearm in the church, someone that the church officiates as the official, in order to protect the church in this type of case, if indeed that is needed. And clearly with the allegations from police that it was a bystander from across the street when this guy got out of his car.
So
Kelly
joining
at
us
the
now,
station.
we have Senator Brian King on the line. Brian, good to talk to you, sir.
Hey, good to be on, Paul, but to talk about the bill, but we certainly hope it was under better circumstances, and certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by this evil tragedy.
I know. It's awful. I mean, the guy's a complete monster, and it's. I will say, you hate to even get into the political gun debate at all, but it's just refreshing to hear common sense even from the White House. Even just to hear Donald Trump say, it's a good thing there was somebody else there with a gun, or the death toll. I think it's without question the death toll would have been much, much higher.
Yeah, and one thing that the 2013 Church Protection Act was designed for was rural situations. I mean, in many counties on Sunday, you may only have one or two deputies on call, and they may be covering 700 square miles. And this would allow each church to designate who they wanted to carry, and it's just in those type of situations, the response time can be considerable in rural situations. I mean, it'd be bad enough if it was in a major city, and so this, like I said, no one wants to even think about these things. It's even terrible to even think that we've got to do this type of thing, but because of maybe even religious intolerance reason, or maybe certain denominations, you have extremes on the right, left that may not like a certain denomination or congregation. You have pastors that and churches that may be involved in a situation involving deep family issues that can cause controversy. And we also have the crime issue, which is another failure by Jeremy Hutchison, the whole Hutchison clan, that has let our crime situation get out of control, and all they want to do is this big talk, but things keep getting worse and worse. But you have crime situations involving churches, and so the 2013 bill basically was just to allow each church to be able to decide how they want to handle what I don't even think is a gun issue. I think of it as a security issue. Mm-hmm. And so they could either not allow any carry at all, or they could designate certain people, or they could allow anybody with a concealed permit to be able to carry.
Yeah, and I completely agree. It is a security issue. It's also something that, in my opinion, it has to do with these churches having freedom to be whatever church they want to be. If you want to post a sign out there that says no guns allowed, I mean, you can do that. I don't think many churches would, because I think common sense would say we're kind of inviting an attack here. Now, talk a little bit about, I mean, since this tragedy has happened, though, people are looking to your bill and Arkansas's efforts here, right? I mean that's why you were mentioned on Fox News so much yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of states, even what you would think is pro-carry states, were not allowing carry in churches, and we tried several times in Arkansas to do it, and we were finally able to get it passed. One thing I will tell you about the sign issue. Now, one thing that several states do, and I've done some research on this, and I think one thing is they need to clear up what is the actual Texas law. I don't think we've ever heard yet, or I haven't, and I've been busy today, but on allowing carry, because, like I said, a lot of pro-carry states ban it in churches. And so on the sign issue, many states will say, we ban carry. We did the opposite here in Arkansas. I listened to several of the churches, sit down and worked with them, and I think that what we came up with is it's the individual carry person that's carrying with the permit to know the responsibility, know the rules, and have permission from the church, or know the rules before they go in there. If you have to post a sign, the tragic part about that is that if you have 10 churches out there and 3 of them don't want any carry at all, which I don't agree with, but yet they don't want that, under my bill, they don't have to post a sign. But, Paul, we just had the campus carry debacle by Jeremy Hutchison, Dismaying, Hendren, a whole host of them that went through this thing. That changed it. So now if you have an enhanced carry, which we still don't even have yet, if you have this enhanced carry permit and a church does not want to, say the Catholic Church or the Methodist Church that has a hierarchy, I think they were originally opposed to my bill, and they wound up being okay with it, I think, in some level. But now, if they don't want any carry at all, even enhanced carry, they're going to have to post a sign. Well, that's dumb for Asa Hutchinson to do that. Okay,
it's making churches vulnerable. It'll make churches vulnerable.
It's just making a church say we're a gun-free zone. Gosh. I mean, it's just, and I tried to talk to them and say, but once again, they pulled the bill out of committee several times. Myself and some other senators had it blocked and wanted to talk about things and try and work things out. No, they don't do it. They just go ahead, and that's why we had the debacle that we had.
Unbelievable. That is so frustrating.
Yeah,
it was. So so you tried to talk to them, and what'd you say? Were you like, hey, you guys are going to undo a key component of the Church Protection Act?
Yeah, that's right. Senator Hendren doesn't want criticism, and so he just, I talked to him. I pulled him back there in the back room, and I said, Jim, I said, hey, let's just work on this bill. You may wind up getting what you want. I may vote for it. I may not. I don't know yet. But I said, let's just slow the process down. Let's have a discussion about it. Because the one thing about gun bills is, Paul, it's just like dealing with guns in real life, like I was taught by my dad. You have to be careful. You have to think about every situation. You have to go through a lot of different things. They rushed the whole thing through. I mean, it was all a bunch of backroom deals, the NRA. I don't even know what the heck they did. But it was all relationships, and they all wanted to get something passed and do something. Another thing, too, is about the enhanced carry part. Well, I mean, we've had the bill in effect now for 4 years, and we fortunately hadn't had any incidents or any problems with it. Like I said, it's very respectful. The nation wants to do in their own policy. And so they basically said, no, we want to decide for you. And I don't agree with that. I mean, I think whatever policy you should have should be respectful. I didn't agree with the previous policy of these people down there in Little Rock deciding that everybody shouldn't have carry in churches and just basically deciding it. And it's still that way today in a different level that, they feel like they need to decide what's best for everybody.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And that's the whole, that's the entire enhanced concealed carry, whatever you want to call it, in a nutshell. When Asa Hutchinson, he called the Second Amendment a privilege that the government essentially gives people. They do not trust people with their natural rights. Like they don't trust. They want you to have a gun if you can satisfy Governor Asa Hutchinson's concerns about you having a gun. Then you can have one, and that's just not.
That's right.
That's just not what.
And if you have the extra time and money, you can do it.
Exactly. It's a joke, but I am glad. I hope other states do look to your bill, Senator Brian King, again from 2013, was successful, is the law. I hate that it's been undermined or changed. If some of these people don't want enhanced carry, they've now got to put a sign out there, which is going to make them more vulnerable. I hope something like that could get fixed in the future. But while I have you here, I'd like to kind of explore on some of the latest headlines that we haven't gotten to talk in a few weeks. But specifically, you had the Trump administration essentially ending the subsidies to insurance companies. As a result, or sort of an indirect result, we have the Arkansas Insurance Department approving these huge, 19, 20, 21% increases in premiums on the people of Arkansas. Everybody's gotten a letter. People are really upset about it. And now we find out, and I know that, the state of Arkansas charges these insurance companies premiums 2.5%. And so when the price goes up, it actually means there's more tax dollars, tax revenue that comes into the government. So there's a real perverse incentive structure going on that actually the government's going to benefit from us paying higher premiums.
Sure, they're going to get more money, and it was Senator Jonathan Dismang who deceives people. he snuck it through on an appropriation bill in special language, and it was helped by the Joint Budget Chairmen. So all the insiders ushered it through. It wound up being a huge tax raise. That's what it was. It was a total deceiving way of multiple times. I mean, you look at Senator Dismaying, that, he comes up with this legislation. I mean, he's, it could be that he needs to answer questions about his ties to Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we've continued to be, the taxpayers have continued to pay for a much more expensive form of Medicaid expansion that is far more than the $215,000 that was originally projected to be on the program. And yet there's questions I think he needs to answer about his ties to Blue Cross Blue Shield. I mean, he runs the legislation, and, I sit there and challenged it. Mainstream media will do nothing about it. Blue Cross Blue Shield has cashed millions of dollars in eligible beneficiary people that's getting benefits. And Senator Dismaying, John Burris, another one that's getting more money out of the legislation that he helped deceive people on. So, this whole thing of everybody wants to talk about the Clintons and paper play. Well, I think there's possible questions that need to be asked down there, but the media down there is not going to ask it. They're just going to keep covering it up.
Yeah,
so,
that's very interesting, because the principle is very straightforward here. The principle is everybody agrees, in theory, that if you're a legislator, you can't make extra money on the side, or I can't pay you, Senator King, to pass a law that says, people in radio broadcasting get these benefits. I can't pay you to do that. That is illegal. And yet, there are potentially, we have the consulting scheme that we see with, Mike and Neil and all these others, that are now involved in the whole court process, or you see attorneys. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but if you're an attorney, you can take on a client and you can run bills for them. And you can get bills passed for them, and because your attorney or because the contract that the attorney and client sign says this is not for lobbying purposes, but it could very easily be, and a lot of times I think is, the attorneys are protected. The attorneys are able to essentially operate.
That's the privilege that Representative Ballinger keeps wanting to do, and he keeps saying, "Oh, well, you don't want to compromise." Well, what they want down there, the insiders want, they want a big, huge loophole that they can jump in and out of and do whatever they want to do. I mean, you look at what's come out, and since you just look at what's come out. I mean, Michael Lamro getting $120,000 check. You look at Jake Files. You look at all this come out, and then every time you file legislation or do something, well, Brian King's a bully. I mean, we had Representative Michelle Gray in the testimony in the committee. Literally, I don't even think the woman even knows what she was saying. Sits there and says, well, my bill was too broad. She then later on contradicted herself later on and said it wasn't broad enough.
Yeah, we have that audio.
I mean, these people just talk out of their head.
And now let's talk about what that was for. Yeah. Okay, that was for your Medicaid disclosure bill.
Medicaid disclosure bill. Yeah, on one hand, you would sit there and watch the video, folks. I mean, it just was, I was like...
It was very weird.
What else? I mean, we're going to have to worry about Russia nuking Guam? I mean, how this is going to affect things? It just was crazy.
But I want to back up, because I think we're talking about two separate issues. You got the Medicaid. Well, maybe no, we are. So when you mentioned State Representative Bob Ballinger, he did not support your Medicaid disclosure bill, correct? No. And it was because of because it would have affected attorneys. Is that right?
Well, that was one of the reasons. I mean, I don't know the other ones. He can get on and explain it, but I mean, he just goes to talking, and so it's just, these guys keep saying, "Oh, Brian King, this bill, this, everything like that." Have you seen anything offer up? The only thing I see offered up is unfortunately headline after headline. And then, Senator Hendren wants to put out a bill from the caucus statement, which I didn't agree with, that we're committed to integrity. No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I've seen enough down there back several years ago and started questioning things.
Why would attorneys not like the Medicaid disclosure bill? Why would that be a problem?
It just protects them. But you don't even have to talk about attorneys. I mean, you look at some of the things going on and the possible pay-to-play thing, and when you start questioning it, well, then guess what? You're a bad person. You're being a bully. You start to demand certain things, and they just keep talking and talking and talking, and then it just keeps getting defeated. And then, unfortunately, like I said, there's headline after headline of things that come out that there is no way that Michael Lamro can explain himself on that, $120,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have yet to see Jake Files or the nursing home people who get hundreds of millions of dollars. And some of these owners, my understanding is, have their own personal jet. So, I've not seen any explanation at all out of anything of how that works. I mean, I can't imagine if I got $80,000 or $8,000 or $800 wired, they would be going crazy.
Yeah, you'd be gone. That's the thing. If you had $80,000 that was wired to you, it'd be over for you. If
where's dual web on all this?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, you're exactly right. Where are they?
Dual web is not going to say anything. All dual web's going to do is worry about cashing his check. I mean, and then they want to sit there and talk about this and talk about getting in front of these committees. And all of a sudden, if you start questioning or saying something about what's going on, next thing you know, they want to attack you.
Yeah. Well, I hope people take your your words and actually do something different.
Yeah, I've even offered dual web. We talk about the budget, and J.R. Davis comes on and tweets things like, "You're false." You're false. But he never gets into anything exact. I mean, he never says anything. All he just says is, "You're wrong." And, but J.R. Davis is a budget hawk. I know. He's a spokesman.
Well, Duncan Barrett is. Yeah. They keep missing projections. There's these phony headlines and talk business talking about how year-to-date is above projections, and then you look in the actual body of the article. I saw this Friday. It was maddening.
No, we're behind.
You were way behind, and yet the headline said – and I actually, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to explain to you why talk business's headlines don't match actually what is in the body of the article. It's pretty easy.
It's more like it's Roby Brock. It's and I'll quote somebody else. It's Roby Croc with Talk BB.
Talk BB. Oh wow, that's good.
I mean, when Mike Beebe was in there, he just and you think, but that's what they do when they protect them down there.
Well,
Senator Dismang doesn't get the. If my bills would have failed on a tenth of the comparison of what John Burris and Jonathan Dismang promised on the verification system, I would have to be in a cave in Bolivia to get away from them.
Yeah, but they're still credible.
That's how bad it would be.
They're still credible because
Senator Dismang flat out deceived people, and he gets away with it.
Well, it's because the deception enabled $2 billion a year to come into the healthcare companies, which then goes into the political action committees, which then goes to the people that, that's why they're still credible, even though nothing they said about this being conservative, has come true with the welfare programs.
No.
That's why they're still credible, because it was enough money to basically shut everybody up from legitimately criticizing them ever again. And that's what we're facing.
And the other thing is, with politicians today, they don't face up to it. I mean, I had gotten a little Twitter deal with Bob Ballinger, who sit there, and we had, Carroll County got new voting machines. I worked on that with the Secretary of State. I didn't go out there and run my mouth about it. I just did my job that I was supposed to do. We worked on it. They came up with a deal. They signed the contract, and they delivered the machine.
Yeah.
And then Representative Ballinger later is tweeting about he's working on making sure that Carroll County gets the machines. Well, if he had been working on it, he would have known they were already delivered whenever he claimed to be working on it. So, I just am like, this is just so out of hand with these politicians that just get out there today and just say whatever. I don't even know how they even think they can. They're being straight with people.
Senator Brian King, it's always a pleasure, sir. I appreciate your work, and we got to go. But you be safe, okay?
All right. right, thanks, Paul.
All right, folks, got to go back in a minute.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you.
Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions.
Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. It's a good first hour. Sure do appreciate everybody that's participating. Hey, for our Facebook Live audience, I'm sorry right now. My computer is dead. I'm not able to communicate with you. I'm not able to see what you guys are saying, but Joe is on the other side of the glass, so we're going to get to that. So actually, I probably pull it up on my cell phone now. My computer is officially dead. So we shall see what we do next. What we do next to get this thing going. Thing is I've got like a backup that could be ready tomorrow, but it's certainly not ready now. I would encourage everybody, if you haven't been to Conduit for Action's website today, check out what we were just talking about with Senator Brian King. Headline, When Premiums Rise, Arkansas Government Grows. It's a great piece by Mr. Josh Waters. It's really, really good. So, anyway, phone number again, 870-275-9799. I am still receiving your texts, so feel free, 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Cuts to the General Assembly, and he said that that's not necessarily the case. And so, you know, we have heard these buzzwords like broadening the base, eliminate exemptions. It seems to me and this is what I'm worried about, that we're going to have a tax increase, meaning more money coming from the people to the government, and then they're going to say, and we'll lower your taxes later, or we'll pass a bill next time that'll lower your taxes this amount, 2 years from now, and then more the next year. It'll be like a phase-in process. And if they do that, they're ignoring the problem that you guys are articulating here, which is the money that comes in, they immediately spend.
That's right. If you want smaller government, if you want to cut spending, we have to cut the taxes defined by the government gets less money than it did the year before. And let me tell you something else that I want our listeners to be listening for is, don't fall for the progressives' tendency to use the class warfare card. We hear about the race card, but class warfare card. No one wants to talk about corporate tax cuts. You've heard Donald Trump talk about them, and I applaud him because I know one of the bullet points on the assignment of the task force is to create jobs. Government does not create jobs. Government can free enterprise to create jobs. It can restrict enterprise from creating jobs. But if we're going to look at what we've already assigned government to do, we've assigned them to educate. Public schools should be educating the future workforce. They can educate the workforce. They can provide workers, educated workers. They're not doing that. Do that job first. Do that job, period. Leave companies alone. And I would say that if I could educate the audience on one thing, I would want to teach them that corporations do not pay taxes. Large companies do not pay taxes. Now, the small mom and pop that happen to have a corporation, C corporation, they're going to pay tax and they're going to feel it, but they're going to adjust we're going to go out of business because we're not making a profit. But big companies that stay in business pass on those taxes. And I would ask your listeners to just look at your current mail and see that the Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield raised the premiums 19.3% with the permission of our Arkansas Insurance Commissioner. And that 19.3% includes the 2.5% tax that's going to go to the state of Arkansas. So the state of Arkansas got a 19.3% raise in premiums that they're going to get from Blue Cross Blue Shield. But Blue Cross Blue Shield's not paying those taxes. They're passing it on to those who are paying it. Now, then I have to do a little plug for what's really happening with our Medicaid expansion. The federal government is paying those premiums. Well, the federal government doesn't get that money out of thin air. They take that out of our left pocket. If we want to say Arkansas taxes come out of our right pocket. So the taxpayer is paying these taxes. Corporations do not pay taxes. So do not be afraid for Arkansas, because I have put a bold recommendation. If Arkansas really wanted to become a dynamic, business-friendly environment, they would eliminate corporate income tax. And if you look at the system currently, Arkansas is not receiving a lot of money, a lot of its general revenue from corporations. If you offset what they receive by what they're giving away, the companies they want to give it to, picking from those who are strong enough to pay taxes.
Talking about corporate welfare.
Winners and losers.
You're talking about corporate welfare, yeah.
You get rid of all of that, yeah, and then it would probably be close to a revenue-neutral tax elimination. and talk about fair, we could really wave the flag because that's fairness to entities and to the individual.
And such an immediate effect. And it is a bold policy suggestion, recommendation, eliminate Arkansas's corporate tax altogether. So if you put a freeze on the current status quo, the current version of what they consider economic development, which you've already alluded to, taking taxpayer dollars, giving it to private corporations, to build a factory or revitalize a factory, and in the next 2 or 3 years they're going to create 30 jobs here or 100 jobs there. Can you imagine if they just, in a blanket policy shift?
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. It's hour number 2. My name is Paul, and congratulations to you. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. One of the ways you can contribute is to give us a phone call or a text message. That number, 870-275-9799. Okay, so interestingly enough, this is quite interesting to me. Last week, Talk Business and Politics and Hendrix College, okay, they came out with a poll that showed that Asa Hutchinson had lost 17 points since April among Republicans. It was not good. It was not his best showing, okay? Showing that the governor is vulnerable with only a 59% approval rating among Republicans, while Donald Trump was in the 80s. It's not good. It's not good at all. Or what was Donald Trump? Was he in the 80s or 79? I think he was 79%. Yeah. Yeah, so 20 points higher is Donald Trump. That's not good for Asa Hutchinson. That shows that he is vulnerable. And that's why you have a lot of people out there, encouraging Jan Morgan, for example, to move her committee or her exploratory committee to an actual campaign. And that is an ongoing story. I mean, it's going to be very exciting. I think the fact that we have somebody publicly considering it means that Asa and the establishment are on notice. They're certainly on the defensive, and they're on the defensive. We documented last week why they're on the defensive. You know why? You know how we know? Because the day after the poll numbers are released, all of the Republican establishment politicians start to circulate a poll that says Asa Hutchinson's the third most popular governor in the United States. How do you not see what you're being asked to do? To state representatives who parroted this, who are not maybe in the establishment, but you're just more like a believer. You're not a deceiver, but you're just a sheep, and you'll go whoever's in leadership. So if a true conservative, if a true limited government conservative were the majority leader or the governor, you guys would be following the line. You'd be happy. You'd just, yay, we're so great. Well, things actually would be going great. But you're just worshiping. This is about worshiping the R at the end of these politicians' names. I wonder if they've even thought about it. I wonder if they've even thought about how they are now. Think about this. Think about what the Arkansas Republican establishment is doing. They are now getting state representatives to participate in the liberal media bias. Think about that. The liberal media bias that we hear Republicans across the state, across the country talk about how unfair they are towards conservatism. And we have state, and I'll tell you one, the one that we mentioned, State Representative Laurie Rushing. I don't know. Do you think State Representative Laurie Rushing saw the poll numbers where Asa had a 17% drop? And do you think Laurie Rushing, State Representative Rushing, that she just was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go and combat this narrative, and I'm going to post this article? Or do you think she had the article sent to her? Do you think the article was sent to her for her to post? Hey, we'd like for this positive message to the governor to get out. Can you put this out? Do you think they sent her the 17-point drop since April? No, of course they didn't. We have Republican establishment politicians putting other representatives in really bad situations. They are now becoming part of the liberal media. They're now doing the same things that the liberal media clearly does. And if you're a state representative and you're listening to this program and you want more evidence that I'm right, Donald Trump, liberal media, they don't ever say anything good about him. The media here can't say enough good things about Asa Hutchinson and the pragmatic job he's doing as a Republican. Code word, he stops the true wishes of the people from being implemented by using the power of the executive branch over the legislative branch and the worship of the R at the end of his name. That's what that means. We really need to remember this. We don't need to ignore it. That is huge. Folks, the news last week is that Asa Hutchinson is vulnerable. Now, I think there's new polls. I saw somewhere on Twitter that tomorrow there's new polls that are due out. I think, is it UALR Public Radio or UALR Research, or no, U of A Research or something? They're coming out with their polling tomorrow. Let's wait and see what happens. I'm going to wait and see what happens before I formulate an opinion. I have suspicions on both sides. I think the numbers are much worse, generally. Whatever the poll is, the numbers are going to be worse for Asa than they show. And that applies to the Talk Business and Politics article, because the Talk Business and Politics article, Talk Business and Politics, man, sometimes I enjoy the information that I read there. And other times, like on Friday morning, I took Friday off, or most of the time, I don't understand how they come up with their headlines. They are so obviously biased, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Economy in Arkansas is doing great. That's basically the headline from Friday. Tax collections are up this time last year. Things are great. Second paragraph of the article, we're missing projections overall for the year. How come that's not the headline? That's your headline. Now, why does Talk Business do that? Why do they do that? Well, the great folks at Conduit Media have done a little research, okay? I'm going to go over some of this. Joe, I know you've got some photos, but let's we're going to go to that first. Let's talk about, hang on, let me pull this up. My computer died, so you'll have to forgive me. Okay. So, if you'll follow along with the research that has been conducted, again, by Conduit Media, you'll figure out that if you start looking through some government documents, most notably the Department of Finance and Administration, you'll figure out that Talk Business and Politics, you got to know who funds them. And in some cases, they're directly paid by some government entities. So Talk Business and Politics, in some cases, is paid for directly by government entities, including, wait for it, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, which runs ads promoting Asa Hutchinson. That's right. Arkansas Economic Development Commission. There's one. Let's find that one. Not that one. We'll go with that one here in a minute. But there was another one I saw. That one right there. See at the top. So here's a screenshot. This is just This is a random day. These are screenshots that were taken just of the ads that are on Talk Business and Politics. Okay. I want to talk about the private ones, but look at that one. There's Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and it's a picture of Asa Hutchinson looking intimidating, which is tough. And he says, the guy who is taking Arkansas industry to the head of the class. Okay? That's number one. And that's on Talk Business and Politics.
Yes, he's taking us to the head of the class to be disciplined. Because we're doing something wrong.
To become the Puerto Rico.
Yeah, because we're doing something wrong here.
Of the mainland. So you look at that. Now, go to the actual link that I had. I'm computerless. It was in the photo. Or no, yeah, there, right there. Now, zoom in on this. What is this? This is the Department of Finance and Administration, Natural State Media. Just so you know, Natural State Media is... that's kind of the parent company of Talk Business and Politics. Now, this is a vendor summary. This is government contracts. These are government contracts that essentially go to Talk Business and Politics. And it's all out there for you to see. Department of Workforce Services, $6,200. Arkansas Economic Development Commission, $500. Total payments issued, $11,000. I mean, this is, it's just out there for public record. Okay? It is what it is. Going back to the photos. Go to the one that you were on before. Not just now. Yeah, you thought that the ASA... This one is very... Right here. Now, this is fascinating. This is an ad placed by the Arkansas Economic Development Commission promoting Asa Hutchinson. This is not promoting Arkansas. This is promoting Asa in his re-election. I think there's a huge conflict of interest here. But it's right next to his bad poll numbers. Look at this. Talk Business and Politics. They run the poll because the poll is their poll. And they got results that showed that Asa's lost 17 points among Republicans since April. He's vulnerable. He's now under 60%. By the way, what percentage you think that 40% that disapproves, or you think they're going to show up to a primary next year? What you think the 60%, the 59%, you think they're more likely to show up to vote for Asa next year, or you think that 40% is in a midterm? Statistics are going to show you that the people who disapprove are going to be there with bells on, especially if there's a viable candidate. They know all this. But look at that placement. Talk Business and Politics. There you have Asa there. The man leading Arkansas. By the way, Asa's in China. Or is he still in China? He's in China. Is he still there? Or is he on his way back? He's drumming up jobs, they say. Yeah. Here we go. Go through the photos, Joe. Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce. Where are they? Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce. They advertise. Okay. Now, look, I'm not one of these people I don't believe in going after advertisers. That's not what this is about here. I am simply doing this to inform you, this particular outfit of Roby Brock's, who, I've been to places where Roby Brock moderates a debate, and I know Roby is he does his Capitol View, or not the Capitol View, he does his Talk Business and Politics on Sundays or whatever else. This is simply meant to highlight the fact that a lot of the people that you see that are giving Talk Business and Politics money have an interest in seeing government grow. Meaning, if government grows, it's going to be good for them. Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce is certainly one of those. Capital Advisors. You see Capital Advisors right there. That's I believe, former State Representative John Burris works for them, right? Former State Representative John Burris also writes for Talk Business and Politics regularly. The Arkansas Agricultural Department. Okay? Arkansas Agricultural Department. There we go. There's that ad. Okay? This is just on any random day. This is all on the same day. These are on there. Okay? Then, of course, we've already mentioned the Arkansas Economic Development Commission featuring ASA. Adventure Arkansas. We saw this one earlier. Adventure Arkansas is actually the Arkansas Parks and Recreation Tourism. Okay. The list goes on. Arkansas Workforce Services. Okay. Baptist Health. And you got to think about the program, it's pro-Obamacare Medicaid expansion. UAMS, pro-Obamacare Medicaid expansion. Right? And there's other lobbyist groups that repeatedly appear. Again, all who have the interest in seeing things grow. Even Stevens. You got to look at Stevens. And you got to think about the idea of bonds, right? Remember bonds? This idea where we can now, because of John Woods, we can now, and ASA, by the way, leverage the people of Arkansas in an infinite way. And our future tax revenue, they can now put Arkansas into debt, whereas before there was a limit of 5%, and now it's unlimited. They went from 5% cap of how much they could risk you and I's financial future and obligations to the state of Arkansas, and now it is unlimited so that they can gamble with our money and give it away to private interests in the name of public safety or corporate welfare or whatever they want to say. It's just interesting to see when you break things down. You just got to follow the money. That's what you got to do, all right? So I wanted to let you know that. Now, that alone, okay, I want to tie these two together. That is why the poll numbers last week freaked the establishment out. Okay? Talk Business and Politics. Again, I read them. I read the stuff that's there. I don't agree with their headlines. I think they're protectionist. I think they have an interest in what the advertisers' interests are, which is to see mostly just to see government grow, to see government expand, to see government keep taxing and spending, more regulations, all of that stuff. But the fact that they are the defenders of the status quo in Arkansas politics, and it's just the truth, it is what it is. I'm not a defender of the status quo. Talk Business and Politics is. It's fine. Just embrace who you are. I want real change. Talk Business and Politics. They want things to stay the same unless it's growing government, because they obviously want that. And that's fine. Each person has, let's let the voters decide, right? And I'm going to keep doing my thing. They can keep doing their thing. But when that particular entity releases a poll, Talk Business and Politics and Hendrix College, when their forces combine to release the poll the way they always do, and it shows that Asa has lost 17 points since April, when their own people that, in my opinion, have a cloak of objectivity, it is a cloak, but it's, whatever, it sent the establishment in a tailspin. And that is why you had people in the mainstream media, as we highlighted last week. You had producers of statewide news broadcast, television broadcast, also reposting Asa Hutchinson's the third most popular governor in all of the United States. He's the third most popular governor. Folks, you don't get any more ridiculous than that. Not to mention the Twitter bots that retweeted Asa's tweet. That was it was so sketchy. It was just so sketchy. When Asa puts it out there, and all of a sudden you have these bots that are retweeting it that are not real people. I mean, we busted that out last week. He had 90 retweets, and most of them were Saudi Arabia Ubers. It was Saudi Arabia Uber this, Saudi Arabia Uber that. Arabic script that I obviously can't read. It's ridiculous. These people were in a complete tailspin last week, and it's important that you recognize it. That's all I'm saying. You got to recognize it, because it means that they're actually legitimately worried about you. They're not doing all this because, the poll numbers are probably much worse than what was actually shown internally, for sure. Ace has got numbers that are worse than that 17% fall. I can promise you that. And they're worried about you. That's what they're worried about. They immediately have to counteract, 17% point. Let's just tell everybody he's awesome. Let's tell everybody that he's the most popular governor in all of the country. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was an amazing example. I mean, it was so remarkable and conspicuous. This is the type of blatant media bias that you read about on Newsbusters. But newsbusters.org, they're busting the news on MSNBC. It's a national thing, and it's clear that can you believe they did this? For example, CNN deceptively edited Donald Trump putting a bunch of fish food. I know we got to go. Putting a bunch of fish food in a tank, right? Or whatever. He was with a Japanese official, and Donald Trump. It looks like he was just, I don't want this. He dumps the whole thing in, right? And everybody's like, can you believe he's disrespecting Japan and everything else? Well, right before that, the Japanese official dumped all of his in. So all Donald Trump was doing was mimicking, right? And so you have this blatant, you're caught trying to present something that is false. And in this case, that's what the Hutchinson administration and all of their cronies and lackeys were caught doing. They got bad poll results, so they try to control the narrative. Very transparently, they try to control the narrative, if you're willing to look for it, trying to say, no, everything's fine, nothing to see here. You know what? I bet you regret. I bet they all regret getting Jan Morgan disinvited from these Republican committees. The only thing it did was make things worse for them. But in the long run, maybe much better for the people of Arkansas. We'll wait and see. Back in a minute.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. Governments do not make ideals, but ideals make governments. This is both historically and logically true. Of course, the government can help to sustain ideals and create institutions through which they can better be observed, but the source of their very nature is in the people. The people have to bear their own responsibilities. There's no method by which that burden can be shifted to the government. It's not the enactment, but the observance of laws that created the character of a nation. President Calvin Coolidge.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man. You got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good. Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP parody. Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now. 870-275-9799.
I see Conduit for Action is out with their newest article for the week. I would encourage you to start your week with this article. Go to conduitforaction.org. It's just out, hot off the presses. Headline, Lying by Omission. Scroll up, Joe. I need to see the rest of that headline because I can't. Yeah. Lying by omission. Legislators brag on military retirement bill, but omit it raised the tax burden. This is a truth. It is driving the establishment crazy now that we found out that their military retirement tax cut that was supposed to be revenue neutral is a net $8 million more for the government out of our pockets. It's pretty sad, and yet still people disprove it. It's because they know that the biggest contributing factor to their loss will be the people figuring out how they voted and how it affects them directly.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You have said no more corporate tax in Arkansas. Now, every existing Arkansas corporation, every one of them, now has all of this extra, income, and you have the ability to see an economic impact immediately. Not 2-3 years, let's, cross our hearts and hopefully the government will have gambled correctly and we'll actually see some sort of improvement in our economy from their investment.
Well, let listeners just think about this for a while. Rather than falling for the class warfare card and thinking those big companies need to pay. I mean, think about the fact that I told you that I'm a tax attorney. I get paid by people to help them pay less tax, pay everything that they owe to the government, but to pay no more. Now, don't you think I would be interested in a company asking me how to pay less tax? That I might say, first you need to move to a state that doesn't charge taxes to a corporation. And as mobile as these companies are, why would they move to Arkansas? We've heard Representative Charlene Fight argue that we need to make Arkansas friendly to those 1,300 military retirees who can move here and live here and pay no taxes. 1,300 people are going to help our economy. If Arkansas legislators seriously want to make Arkansas stand out and be a commerce magnet, something that they're really not benefiting from currently, they would get rid of the corporate income tax, and they would see corporate America flock to Arkansas like it's never done before.
Yeah, you are exactly right. I mean, this paper is really, really good. And, here's another quote from it. Therefore, if you want spending reduced in Arkansas, if you want smaller government, you simply cut taxes. And then in the middle of the paper and the end of the paper, and I'll give you the last word, Brenda Vassar-Taylor from Conduit for Commerce, you say that it is merely a question of this, quote, how much do the people of Arkansas want to pay for government? Because you clearly establish here, Brenda, that they spend every dime we're giving them is going right back out on some priority.
Well, that's right. To say that we want smaller government, cut spending, we're going to cut spending, we're going to do a budget plan, that's ridiculous. All we need to talk about is how much are we going to cut taxes, because under Arkansas system now, everything that comes in is spent.
That's exactly right.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Brenda Vassar-Taylor, Conduit for Commerce. Check it out, folks. Conduitforcommerce.org. You can check out the recommendations to the task force. I certainly hope. I know they're meeting next week, and I hope they take these.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, welcome back. 870-275-9799. I want to get to the new article over at Conduit for Action here in just a minute, lying by omission. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. But first, Governor Asa Hutchinson was in China, and he still might be in China. I don't know. It's like he got a flu shot a couple weeks ago, and that was news. And that was news. And then, oh my gosh. Okay, so now he's in China, and he gets these headlines. Noel Oman Governor beats jobs bushes in China. So, Governor, what a title. Governor beats jobs bushes in China. Some of these titles are just unbelievable. You know, let me. So I had so the Houston Astros won the World Series, right? Arkansas Democrat Gazette runs a story yesterday or the day before about the Houston Astros mascot. His name is Orbit, and the headline was this: Arkansan has a bird's eye view of the World Series, or something like that. And it was a picture of the Houston Astros mascot, Orbit. Yeah. Now, I thought, what a terrible headline, number one, because this is a space alien. And you went with bird's eye view, and he's a space alien. You couldn't make a space pun out of that? Come on, get creative. And I read the article, and I have to say, I think it really missed the mark. And the reason I do is because I personally know the man, the Arkansan. His name is Kyle Hampshire. He is one of my best friends. I met him in college. We both went to Arkansas State together, where he was the mascot for Arkansas State, and he was a mascot at his, in college, and he was. You wouldn't believe the professional niche of being a professional mascot, like in whether you're professional, just in professional sports, so hockey, basketball, baseball, you name it, football. But it's such a hard industry to break into. That's what that article was missing, and it really upset me. They interviewed Kyle, and he did a good job. But I mean, I don't think people understand the success story of an Arkansan who is a young Arkansan going to Houston, but he didn't get the Houston Astros mascotting job right away. He gets it out of after a lot of hard work, and it's a hard field to break into. And I know that just because I'm friends with him and I went to school with him and everything else. But anyway, I just want to say congratulations to him here on the air again, Mr. Kyle Hampshire. And I wouldn't say he had a bird's eye view. Number one, he was the mascot, so he's right there on the field. So he doesn't. I don't even understand these headlines. People, get creative. I mean, you could easily get. You could even work the word orbit in your headline. I don't know. It's just really frustrating. Really frustrating. But congratulations, Kyle. I'm sure you're not listening because you live in Houston. But anyway. But this headline, Governor beats jobs bushes in China. It talks about Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson in the midst of his third trip to China. He said he would deem it a success if the 5 Chinese manufacturers that have announced plans to open operations in the state follow through. What? Did you hear that, Joe? His trip to China, which cost $70,000, and he has his entourage with him, including the likes of Mike Preston, the director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. They announced plans and operations. I thought this was a done deal. We've had the press conferences. I thought the jobs were forthcoming. I thought these guys were coming. And you're telling me that it's not a done deal?
So we basically gave them citizenship, too.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you play this. Did you hear about this? We gave the Chinese people, the Chinese CEO, citizenship in our
Chairman Chu, Rui, welcome to Arkansas. And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. Senator English, I saw you out there too.
I mean, what a dumb statement. This guy, good grief. There's obviously a grain of truth to that. that these senators are going to be tempted, at least, I don't know, but I mean, they'll be tempted to serve a Chinese CEO, a Chinese company, get back to them a lot quicker than they get back to you and me. I can promise you that. So we give these people citizenship, and it's not a done deal. But wait a second. We've already had the positive headlines. You've already had the headlines that say, Asa Hutchinson, the jobs governor, he's bringing 100 jobs here. He's bringing 80 jobs here. He's bringing da-da-da-da-da, and it's not a done deal. It's not a done deal yet. You think the media feels slighted at all? Is there anybody in the media that would feel slighted that you reported these positive headlines that have a direct political consequence, and yet it's not accurate information, potentially not accurate information? At some point, the media, if there's any true journalists left, you guys have got to start realizing how you're being used here in the state of Arkansas. But I'll reference you back to my first segment. It's not going to happen anytime soon, is it? The first segment of this hour, right? I mean, if you go through the finances of who's actually giving us information, no. Quote, obviously, there would be an extra bonus if there are additional investments made on some of the new calls we're making here, Asa told reporters in a video conference. So we might get more companies that we can give money to. Let's just be clear. Any new prospects and the current ones we're still pursuing that I thought were a done deal, what we're talking about is they're going to come here as long as we give them incentives and money to do so. Scrolling down, Joe. Hutchinson described the trip, which is to end in Japan next week, as productive, but he made no job announcements from the journey. It's been an extraordinary trip thus far. We have a lot more to do. The piece goes on. The governor is leading an 8-member delegation that includes Mike Preston, the executive director of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. By the way, again, this is Mike Preston.
Chairman Chu, Rui, welcome to Arkansas.
What if these guys are bowing to him, like
Chairman,
Obama
you'll look
did?
out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you.
Yeah, you call on them. Yeah, never mind that they're supposed to answer us when we call because we're actually citizens and we actually get to vote. No, that's what happens when the government and private business, the line blurs. You don't know where one ends and the other begins. And they're also part of our electoral process, apparently. An 8-member delegation into China. Mike Preston, the executive director, you just heard there, his just quite relevant statement. The total cost of the trip to the state, $70,079. And the Arkansas Economic Development Commission Foundation, which is a nonprofit, they're getting the additional costs. They're covering the additional costs needed. Isn't it interesting that you have the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, government, then you have the Arkansas Economic Development Foundation, non-government, but they're a nonprofit and they're affiliated with a government agency. Isn't that weird? They have a nonprofit directly affiliated with a government agency. Anybody have a problem with that? No? Nobody? Joe, you do? Well, not really anybody else does. That's the nonprofit foundation, by the way, that gives Mike Preston his like $50,000 plus bonus every year for doing so many great things. Asa Hutchinson said he met with former Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, the U.S. ambassador to China, to discuss the inspections that China wants to conduct before Arkansas rice can be sold there. Okay, you can't do that on the phone, Governor? Simple phone call would have sufficed, Mr. Wayne. I'm sorry, Mr. Fox. Also, in Beijing, he said he met with representatives of the China National Textile and Apparel Association. Quote, I see that it's an opportunity sector for us in Arkansas. We've already recruited 2 garment and textile companies from China to reshore in Arkansas. But to ensure that they and the other 3 companies actually come to Arkansas was the major purpose of the trip. This is unbelievable to me. Now, aside from the fact that even if all these companies come, they're not going to have any workforce. And that may be why you got to have ASA to shore things up, because the governor has not yet explained where these jobs will come from. We have no skilled labor force that's just sitting on a couch ready to work in a skilled labor job, ready to work in they don't exist. They don't exist. And this is about the same people that go and they tout, well, Arkansas's record unemployment number. I mean, if you believe that number, I guess somebody's built 1,000 McDonald's somewhere I'm not aware of, but skilled workforce crisis. That's what we have here in Arkansas. Who's going to work these jobs? Who is it? And the Chinese companies, they may see these incentives, but they may say, we're not going to be able to find people to do the jobs. Folks, we have a welfare crisis in Arkansas. Arkansas is paying 300,000 people to stay at home right now who are able to work. It's unbelievable. I can't believe that the paper, the Democrat Gazette, Noel Oman is reporting that the major purpose of the trip was to make sure that these companies actually follow through with what we've already had detailed Arkansas press conferences where ACE has taken all the political credit. Now, if these bills fall through, something tells me we're not going to have press conferences where ACE takes the blame, where ACE explains what happened. There certainly won't be the front page headlines of Arkansas loses 120 jobs. And now, if that was the case, I'd have no problem with this. If these investments fall through, and we actually haven't given them money, but if these potential jobs fall through, I'd have no problem with it if it says Arkansas loses 120 jobs. Well, Paul, we didn't actually lose those jobs. Okay, well then quit reporting that we gained 120 jobs. Or essentially, that's the practical effect when you say, Arkansas governor the other day announced that China company from Shandong province, Ryu, is coming and will create, that's what they love. This is going to create 300 new jobs in St. Francis County. And then that's it. That's it. Most people read that. Oh, wow, 300 jobs. We just made 300 jobs today. That's how most people see it. And that's the truth. These media outlets are willing participants and being used to promote the political agenda of Asa Hutchinson, which is he's the jobs governor. And there are people who believe it. There are people who are deceiving this narrative that government creates jobs. They are doing a disservice to the Republican Party platform. They are doing a disservice to limited government conservative goals and the agenda there. Also, they can get positive headlines. And, this is Asa Hutchinson's entire governing strategy is based on this. Arkansas is really not as conservative as other states like Texas are. So I'm going to govern from left of center. They hate it. No, he's governing from the right of center. Really? People from the right of center don't raise taxes. People right of center don't increase spending, okay? You don't do these things. The Republican Party platform says you don't do these things. That's not what you're about. You're governing from the left of center, and it's because you have bought the lie that the special interests have sold you, and that's we don't want change. We don't want what they want. We don't want what the vast majority of the people want. And he is betting, Governor Hutchinson is betting he will get reelected by it being a true thing, a true reality, that Arkansas is really not as conservative as other states. That our people really do like big government. And what that fails to acknowledge, why did we switch to Republicans in the first place? They're going to say, well, Obama. And I promise you there's an advisor somewhere in his ear. Somebody somewhere has said, well, it's just because Arkansas is racist. That's why people voted for Republicans. It's because there really were a lot of people in Arkansas who just didn't like a black man in the White House. There still are Democrats and liberals. They just are also racist. I promise you that is what some people believe as the reason why Arkansas suddenly went. It had nothing to do with issues to them. It had nothing to do with policy. It had nothing to do with seeing socialism in action and rejecting it. It had nothing to do with people reading more, becoming more educated, understanding that socialism is most active in the Democrat Party and free market economics and personal responsibility and voluntary cooperation is what the Republican platform says. And see, to deny that fact and to blame it on, well, they didn't really know what they were doing, or, well, they just didn't like a black man in the White House, and the leftists in this state, that's what they believe. It's denying the fact that we were really voting for reform. We weren't voting for those reasons. We were voting for reform, for change, for the fact that Arkansas started the political career of what is now arguably the most powerful political family in the world, the Clintons, and almost put another Clinton in the White House and changed the Supreme Court forever. Can you imagine? Folks, if Hillary Clinton had won, religious freedom in this country would have ended. It would have ceased to exist as we know it for our children and their children, period. And we as a state almost owned that. We were Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania away. Florida. I mean, we were very close to that being Arkansas's legacy. Thanks a lot, Arkansas. Thanks for Bill and Hillary. And thankfully, that's not the case. We have not had reform, real reform, since the political machine has pumped out the Clintons. And that's what we're really fighting here. And you have to understand that. We're fighting a good old boy system that almost put 2 Clintons in the White House, that gave them their start. You have to understand that. That's the reform that people, those are the optics that people made their decisions from switching from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. That's what people were confronted with. They were confronted, with social issues, like the right to life. They were confronted with Second Amendment issues, and those are low-hanging fruit issues among conservatives now. But they were also confronted with President Obama telling business owners that they didn't get where they were by their own hard work and initiative, that you didn't build that. And that is what the Democrat Party believes, that you didn't build that. That is why people voted for Republicans. And to have the Republican Party come in and not change that mentality and instead say, I'm going to increase spending almost $500 million in 3 years, but don't worry, I'm going to cut your taxes $150 million, and I'm going to take that 7% state tax rate and bring it down to 6.9%. And you should reelect me because I did that? Come on. No, that's missing the point. All right, we got to take a break. That's my rant. By the way, check out Conduit Fraction's new article. We didn't even get to it. About lying by omission. Back in just a moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist health care program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
It's been a good Monday, good start to the week. I appreciate you guys being with us and sticking it out the whole show. This broadcast will be available for you at paulharrell.com, also at Facebook Live, assuming Facebook doesn't remove the video, facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. I haven't told you about this all program personally, but our Patreon channel is becoming a lot of fun. Our videos that are coming out each week are fresh, they're new, and they, I believe, are able to provide you with, extra content. And I just want to say, and I've said it a million times now at this point, but if you believe the program has value, if you believe what we're doing, telling you what's going on in Arkansas, if you want us to keep doing this and make it better, just consider partnering with us over at patreon.com. It's just a medium to where we can give you extra content, and we're able to make a small amount of money with each subscription, and we put that back into the show. We put that back into the program in order to make our videos better, and in order to make the radio program better as well. And I got an example of that. Hopefully tomorrow I'll have a pretty sweet example of that. But with all that being said, there are 3 levels. You can become a Liberty Machine engineer for $5 a month, and you can get the message board, access to the message board, as well as our Wednesday weekly video for $5 a month. For $10 a month, you become a Paul Harrell program producer, and you will get surveys to what we should talk about, who we should interview. You get to input that. Matter of fact, we had somebody on from a Paul Harrell program producer level last week or 2 weeks ago. Or you could become a Conduit Media Insider for $25 a month. Now, just think about it. If the show's of value, consider it. Patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. My name is Paul Arkansas. Thank you so much for listening. Can't do it without you. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow.